My name's Tony Nwachukwu. I'm a host CDR in London, Berlin, and Copenhagen. It sounds much more, it's not as glamorous as it sounds, but it is, honestly. I'm a music producer and educator based in London. We're running a series of these workshops and panel discussions in collaboration with Ableton for Meltdown. We've got 2 more sessions today. This one, and Jesse is going to do a production-focused Ableton workshop. And then we've got a series of sessions next Saturday, June 21st, so please join us if you can. I'm joined here with a gentleman who's a kind of true reflection of, I guess, Meltdown in terms of employment. He started off as what's known as a tape-op. Who doesn't know what a tape-op is? Who doesn't? Okay, cool. So quite a lot of you. Good. All right, that will be explained in a minute. So started off as a tape-op in the good old days of big studios, and has kind of like worked his way up as a freelance worker in the music industry, and is, I guess, someone who's been very adaptable and kind
That's
of
a good word.
Yeah,
adaptable.
Indeed, let's use it quite a lot. And very kind of amenable. Is that another good word?
Another one, yeah.
Yeah, as a kind of a true reflection of how you've had to be in this evolving music industry. So before we delve into the session, Sie Medway-Smith.
Hello. Pleased to meet you.
So, tape-op. What is a tape-op?
Tape-op is a tape operator. That was your job, was to press play, stop, rewind, record. Tape-op. Tape machines don't really exist in studios anymore. But
that's all right.
The name is still there.
Indeed.
Tape-op. Dog's body,
cool.
Go get stuff, plug stuff in, make the tea boy, basically.
So in the good old fashions of, in good old fashioned days, that sounds really retrospective, but it's not. In big studios, you have different kinds of jobs. So the idea of the tape-op was a person who, on one hand, operated the tape machine, but it's essentially was your way in. So it's a bit like the equivalent of being like an intern at a company. You'd either get no money or very little money. You'd have no time of your own.
£10 a day.
Was it that much?
Actually, per session.
Okay.
If the session was 2 days, it's still a tenner.
There you go. But it's a good opportunity to kind of learn on the job. You kind of do everything, you watch everything. And if you're someone that's adaptable and amenable, it's a good opportunity to actually meet artists and producers in a really interesting way. What's different about the industry now is that obviously opportunities like being a tape-op don't really exist as such. But it was a really good way of kind of meeting artists as they develop. And, something that we'll definitely illustrate next time. So some of the relationships that you have now are with artists and producers that you met when you first started, right?
Like yourself.
Exactly.
Tony.
And you have a relationship that kind of develops over time, and there's a kinship that's beyond being a fan or beyond being, someone in your life in a different way. It's a different...
I reckon, yeah. I mean, I was really lucky. The studio I went into happened to be being used by all the Mo Wax artists, and I was a really big fan of that whole scene. Had all the records that were being made, and then I got to make loads of them with all the people that I really liked. So you can be a fan, but not too far.
Sure. Well, you're a very humble fan, as I remember. No, it's fine.
Thanks.
Yeah. So Milo was in Hoxton Square.
That's
and
right.
Hoxton Square was a fantastic place to be, in the early 90s. You had the Blue Note, obviously.
Yeah.
You had Straight No Chaser in the same area. And it was kind of a really kind of emerging area in terms of... And also, Old Street back then was quite reasonable to live. So a lot of musicians, producers lived in the area because studio space was quite cheap. So if you needed to go and record some drums or record some vocals out of your bedroom studio, you'd go to Milo.
You come to me. I'd set your kit up, mic it up, put you into record. Then it's up to you if you're any good or not. But yeah, it was a really vibing area. Well, it still is, even more so. But back then, there wasn't very much going on outside the studio, apart from that club. Couple of things, but the people were there.
So from tape-op to a decent cup of tea to getting to engineer your own sessions. I guess for you, because you were very passionate about technology and you're very keen to adapt, you kind of took the whole engineering thing in your stride, right?
Yeah, I walked into the studio day one, and the manager said to me, "Have you got any mates?" I went, "Yeah." He went, "Well, forget about them. You're not going to see them anymore." And I laughed like that. And he went, "I'm serious, mate." And so I was like, okay, he's serious, no problem. Didn't see anybody. He said 3 years to become an engineer, but I did it real fast because I no longer had any mates, and I really wanted to do it. There was nothing would get in my way at that time. I was 19.
What year are we talking here?
A really long time ago.
About 93 and 94.
93.
Yeah.
Yeah, 93 into 94. Yeah, 94. And I couldn't be stopped. So after 6 months, I walked in the door, I could make a cup of tea and I could switch stuff on. I could plug it in. I didn't know how it worked or anything. 6 months in, I'd put out a record on a rival label to Mowax, set up by one of the Mowax artists.
Well, let's talk about Pussyfoot and Howie B for a minute.
Yeah.
So Howie's obviously another regular at Milo Studios.
Absolutely.
An accomplished producer and artist in his own right. And someone, I wouldn't say Pussyfoot was a rival, but definitely in terms of the same mindset. Yeah. Same
sure.
mindset.
Part of the family.
A bit like Liverpool, Everton
Mowax
kind of thing
family.
going on. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So you were engineering, brought out your first record on Pussyfoot.
Well, the first session I did on that very day when the manager said you've got no mates anymore was with Howie B. And he took me under his wing, quite literally put his arm around me and said, "You're going to be my apprentice." So I put out records on his label really quickly. He taught me to be an engineer really quickly. So a year in, I was engineering. You came along, was working with people like you. I was just really hungry for it.
And what kind of, what kind of tasks did you have to do as an engineer? I know it's quite broad, but maybe pick on two or three that were kind of key.
First sessions were literally recording voiceovers. There was a company that did some TV editing, and they were always wanting to do voiceovers. So you'd have to set up the mics, record them, edit the takes, give it back to them on a DAT, digital audio tape. And then from there, you'd start working with bands that didn't have much budget. So they had to have the budget engineer at the time, which was me. And yes, set the band up, get them playing.
But again, the irony of working with the budget bands is that every so often a budget band goes on to be a kind of super duper budget band.
Really good band.
A popular
true.
budget band.
Yeah, it's true what you say. Like now, maybe one of the things that is still there is that you get access to people really early on. And they either develop into good things or disappear because they can't handle it or don't get the breaks.
Indeed. So for you, up until what time, because you're still engineering now, it's still part of your job description,
Yep, I still engineer.
Yeah. So you went on from being engineer, writer, producer. When would you say was the significant leap? What project did you work on that you said to yourself, you know what, I am a producer, engineer/producer now?
Yeah, because the word producer gets thrown around really easily, doesn't it? Especially now.
Yeah, because the reason I mention that is because obviously, particularly, in the days of studios, in the days of, having this kind of like lineage, the role of an engineer was completely different to a producer, and you almost have to like earn your, each experience, you kind of like gain more knowledge, in terms of like the technical capabilities. You obviously embrace opportunities that you get. But ultimately, when you've got your producer hat on, it's almost like you're removed from the kind of technical side of things, and it's almost like you've got the responsibility of a project. Yeah. So what would you say would be your kind of like, graduation from being an engineer to being a producer?
Well, I would say when I got paid to produce a record, and that was pretty early on.
So
But,
beyond £10, it was a bit more
yeah,
than that now. Okay.
The first record I got asked to produce, I got paid more than the artist got paid. So I was like, yeah, I'm a producer now, right? But I didn't think I was very good. Someone did.
Do you remember who it was?
It was a French guy. It was for a label called Lavelle, and his name was Roo-Doo-Doo. Sounds a bit daft, but he was actually really cool. Still is. Nice guy. So I suppose I thought, all right, you're a producer because you're getting paid to be a producer. I don't know if I believed I was good enough then. So after that, I got a fair amount of production work, but I suppose, like artists, you always feel like you're a bit of an imposter to a certain point.
What do you mean by that?
Well, you kind of wonder whether your work is good enough. You know, like painters often think they're really rubbish, and then 100 years later, they're really popular. So I doubt my work for quite a long time, but I still managed to get through because technically I was really good. And then probably about 10 years ago, I started working with Mute Records, and I took a step back after a year, and I realised I was working with all their top artists. And I thought, okay, I must be all right at this now. So I think when I got to Mute, and I was making records for Depeche Mode, people like that, I felt like I'd done it. I'd earned my stripes.
So this is all you being a freelancer? Yeah?
Yep.
Did you have management at all?
So many. So many managers that never worked out for me.
Okay. Well, perhaps we could talk about that then the next
Sure.
the next talk. So, you know, I'm glad you mentioned Mute because and Depeche Mode, because you've actually worked with quite a lot of artists. You know, Princess Superstar, Jackknife Lee.
Yeah.
Lots of. Can you name some more that you've had
Do
the
you know,
pleasure to work
you
with?
saying Jackknife Lee, that's when I realised I was a producer.
Okay.
That was the one. Because he was a mate of mine, and he was working on stuff, I was doing stuff, and then he said, we should do something together. I was like, okay, what do you want to do? He said, do you want to produce my album? I was like, no, you're a producer. He said, no, you're better. So will you do it? I was like, yeah. And that's when I realised. Now look at him. He's the biggest producer on the planet. He really is.
Well, things evolve, you know.
Of course.
Opportunities and all that.
Yeah.
So who else have you worked with?
What else have I worked on with him or in general?
In general.
Bjork, Massive Attack, Depeche Mode, pretty much all of the Mute roster. God, so many.
So many.
Not too many, but
is it all a blur?
It's not all a blur. It's just when I'm put on the spot, I'm not very good at coming up with the names.
But that's also something that's again reflective of perhaps the lineage. When working as an audio worker, the focus isn't necessarily on the fact that I'm in a studio with big name artists. It's actually you're working with someone whose craft is making records, right? And that's kind of the focus. And I guess a lot of the time when you're working with bands or artists, you know them you have a different relationship with them and perhaps know them on first name terms in a way that perhaps fans or the public wouldn't know. So
sure,
I totally get that one where it's all one big blur, regardless of being on the spot or not.
I think with big bands to be subtle, about they're just people. And when you're in an environment where you're making a record, it's really personal and you've got to feel safe. So if you're a massive fan and you're behaving like one, you probably wouldn't last long in the role that I do. If you treat everyone the same, that they're people, I think that's worked for me all the way.
So, again, adding another string to your bow from this producing and writing, you've had really good opportunities to write with some really good, artists. You've been published.
Yep.
You've ticked all the kind of boxes in the audio world.
I've ticked a lot of them. Really early on, I ticked the artist one and realised that wasn't what I wanted. I didn't want to be in the spotlight. He says, looking straight up at one.
Was this after your second album? Would you say?
Yeah. After my second album, I thought, I don't know if this is something that I really want to do right now. Because it was, you know, being on the cover of DJ magazine and stuff like that, I was really uncomfortable with that stuff. Some people love it. I didn't. I liked being in the studio where you can hide behind a big desk and loads of gear.
And no lights. No lights,
No
but
lights.
no
Switch
daylight.
your lights off.
I remember Milo for that.
Yeah.
So I think what would be really cool would be that apart from the fact that you have to turn mirroring on your laptop,
Yes.
is that a lot of your work, you know, you do a lot of work in the box nowadays.
Yeah.
We'll talk a little bit about how the industry has evolved from your perspective and how you've had to adapt. We'll do that in a second. But I think for now, what we should do is, you know, show people a work of progress of yours.
So, can you see this on
You
there?
need to mirror, apparently.
Oh. Can you do it?
For display. Okay. You. The art of delegation is obviously
I'm
a
so
skill.
technical.
So while we're delegating and mirroring,
Yes.
Let's talk about what you've got for us here.
So this is a project, a new artist called Charlie Brown. That is his real name, by the way. Up and coming singer-songwriter who I've known for years. And as he was coming up, he keeps sending me music. Since he was at school, this kid, 15-year-old boy, just kept sending me music that had something about it. And I'd always check him, you know, like, how you doing, Charlie? And then suddenly he pushed himself up a gear.
How was that? What did that? Was it like a mixtape or some kind of what promotion?
He went in and recorded some songs with someone off his own back somewhere. Sent me the demo, and I thought, this is actually quite good. And he never lost the hunger for it. He's 24 now, and hungry as they come. And that is something that if it's not there, you haven't got anything. You've got to be hungry. That's why I still work, because I'm really hungry to be in music. That's why you're still there.
Indeed.
So yeah, this is one of Charlie's tracks. I'll keep him muted for the minute. But it was really good hearing the Heritage boys a minute ago playing all that Goldie stuff, because I worked on that stuff with Rob Playford. I went to school with Rob Playford. And he was a bit older than me, but we knew each other all the same. And it was good hearing your stuff, because I've got the same break here, the Amen break, chopped up with an 808. Let me hit play. Hopefully it's not going to boom everything down.
We'll soon find out, eh?
Nothing. Nothing's happening. Where's our audio boy? Yeah. Where is he?
Delegate again.
It's running at my end. Should be there.
There's not a filter on it,
No.
There's nothing at all.
There we go. What'd you do?
Trade secret, mate.
little snippet of one of Charlie's tracks.
Nice.
And the reason why I wanted to play this is because I'm known for my mix work as a mix engineer. And I now mix everything in the box, pretty much, in Ableton. And when I tell people that, they're like, really? Oh, what? I didn't think you could mix in there. Oh, no, I don't use it for mixing. And I find it to be the best thing I've come across ever.
Ever?
Seriously.
ITB forever?
Yeah. You get your computer. Hey, James, you right, mate? Been a long time.
So a bit of reconnection here.
Yeah. I'm sitting here.
Do you want to come and join us? No? That's what, James. Perhaps you can ask a question later. Get some tips in, yeah?
Nice one.
Cool. Set James Lavelle just there.
It's his festival, people.
Just like that. Big shout. Okay, so what have we just listened to? It's a track by Charlie Brown.
Brown.
This is a track. He gave you the parts.
He came to me with a guitar, and he sang me a little melody. He didn't even have any lyrics. So I was like, okay, well, we're going to have to start off by writing a song here. So we did. We mapped out verse, bridge, chorus, put it down to a click. And this track started off as kind of beats, 90 BPM. And I was really uncomfortable with it for a while. And then I thought, okay, let's make a drum and bass track out of it in a pop way.
And why did you make that decision? Why drum and bass and not, say, I don't know, garage or something?
I think it was because I was working with Rudimental, and we were making a lot of drum and bass, and I was in that mood. I thought, yeah, let's do something like that, because he's an East London boy. I literally had just stepped out of the studio from them, and I thought, I'll carry on with that. It's working. So we did. We flipped it, double-timed it, and it seemed to work. I
think so.
Yeah.
So is it possible to show us some of the components of the track?
For sure. So this is a really subby, the main bass line, solo. And then I doubled that up with a Fender Rhodes. No, that's a Juno bass.
Guess to get some bites in the low end, right?
Yeah, then I put the beat in. And I got a live trumpet on here as well. We did all this in my front room.
Okay.
Like you can now. You can make a record at home. And I did.
So at what point does Charlie get into the mix?
Oh yeah, no, you haven't heard him yet. This is Charlie. Let's put him in.
So you know, take it as a sign. I've only gonna save my soul. Ever since I'm holding on, trying to forget that love. Never had to give it up or let it go. I'm forever holding on. Don't give it up, don't give it up if I ever let you go. Don't give it up, don't give it up, I'm forever holding on. Don't give it up, don't give it up if I ever let you go. Don't give it up, don't give it up, oh.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot Charlie there.
Sorry,
right. Charlie.
Sounds all right, mate. Don't you think?
Cheers.
Yeah. So you're still a work in progress, right?
Yes. Yeah, but this will be his first, this will be his debut. So when you hear it on the radio, you go, oh yeah, I remember. The South Bank.
Exactly. That's the beauty of the world we live in.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what's been really good about this particular track is that, I guess all the elements of your skill set have been utilised. The fact that you're a programmer, obviously, your writing skills, and the fact that you can almost embrace a project and look at it from both a writing perspective, but also from a production perspective and a producer perspective.
Sure. Yeah. You're totally right. Everything is there that I've learned from being a T-boy to sitting here now. And I reckon one of the really important skills is to know how to talk to people, how to be in a not necessarily social environment, but people skills are really important with studios. Whether you're in a big studio or in my front room making that, you've got to know how to get the best out of someone and the best out of your equipment. Yeah, there's a lot of skills involved in making a record, not just knowing what good music is.
Indeed. So I'm guessing that this project is self-funded, as in is something that you're developing on your own.
He's actually got his own label, private money, always the best money.
So, because if this was, say, 15 years ago, it would have been a different situation, right?
Yeah. And I'd have a label breathing down my neck saying, where is it? But in fact, I haven't. I've just got, total freedom to work on this, which can't be bad.
So the creative decisions are just yours and Charlie's, right?
It's just me and Charlie. And fortunately, he's up for anything I say is a good idea. Brilliant.
But, obviously, again, I think there's something about your character and the way you approach production and writing that makes, puts a lot of trust in you, right? So
sure,
that's something to be commended.
Cheers. I mean, trust is a big one. If someone's going to put money into it, like you were saying about earning your stripes, it's as good. How good are you? You got to look at the track record, and you are as good as the last record you made. And the record I made before this was for Depeche Mode, and it was for the Achtung Baby anniversary edition. Depeche Mode covered a U2 song. So I was like, hang on, that's my last record. That's pretty good. Two of the biggest bands. So the people trust me that I'm going to deliver.
And also, it's a really good testament to a way of working. The fact that on one hand you can be working with a multi-million, platinum cinema artist.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you're always looking for new opportunities, regardless of budget. It's about having a fantastic opportunity and embracing it, right?
Sure. Yeah, that's exactly it. Work with people if they're good. That's my bottom line. Is this music that I believe in? Yes, okay, I can do it. It doesn't matter how much someone's got. And it all started making beats with Mo Wax, didn't it? Look at it. And this is something that's quite important, is that when we started, you needed access to a studio to make things sound releasable.
I mean, you can make the beats at home, right? But I think to make a finished record, you had to basically go to a professional place to get it sounding. Yeah, sure.
And now, I look at this. I've got my little laptop and a hard drive. And we could all sit here and make a record if we had the time. And it would sound good if you knew what you were doing.
Well, you're at the helm, aren't you? So
I am. I'm in charge.
So what's your take on, obviously you're a big fan of In the Box, which is, fantastic, and for a lot of people that's fine. I mean, you've obviously experienced using the various consoles, various pieces of outboard. What's your take on the whole, do you have to have outboard over, just In the Box?
I don't think you have to, no. For certain type of music, maybe.
What kind of music needs just, hardware and out the board?
an orchestra. You'd need a pretty big space for them, for one.
But there's some decent
mics,
libraries, no? There's some decent libraries, no?
Yeah, to play along to. No, there's some really decent libraries, it's true. But yeah, an orchestra, you'd need really good mics, really good mic amps. I think you'd need hardware. You're right, there's good libraries so you could make something good. But to be an engineer and to record something like that, you'd have to give it justice. That's going to involve hardware.
All right. Any pressing questions from anyone right about now?
Hello.
Yeah, 1 second. Oh, have we got a mic this time? Hey, we should have.
Here it comes.
Hi.
Hello.
Yeah, I do a little bit of Ableton song making, but I'm having trouble finishing tracks. I started like hundreds of things and I just can't finish them. Do you have any advice for me?
Deadlines. Give yourself a deadline.
Self-imposed, right?
Yeah, totally. Say, okay, those 10 songs, I'm going to finish this month. And if you start to get distracted, remember that you set yourself that goal. Write it down all over the house. Finish this one. Finish that one. Ding, 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 ding. When you've got a record label behind you, they are your deadline.
Sure.
And when you don't, you have to be your own deadline.
Cool.
It can be done.
I'd also add, don't listen to any other music while you're getting those tunes done. Because a lot of the time what happens is you start comparing what you're doing to other people and then you get insecure because you think, oh, my track's not as good as that person's track. Just don't listen to anything, just focus. Again, deadlines. Next question, and then...
I would, as the guy said, he had problem with finishing tracks. My problem is not necessarily the finishing the tracks, it's the gap between finishing the track and making it sound truly 100% with a really good mix behind it. And I use stuff in the box too, but it's like when you take it from one speaker to another, do you have any advice like just that making it work on all different types of systems?
Yeah, NS10s, Yamaha NS10 speakers.
You're speaking a foreign language, mate. They don't make them
Really?
anymore. Yeah.
Okay,
What's
when
the
you watch a music video or a documentary in the studio, there'll be speakers with a white cone, black speakers with a white cone. And if you can make your music sound good on those, it will sound good anywhere. Sure. Know your speakers and take mixing seriously. It's not an afterthought. Mixing is a skill that needs to be learnt, and it's trial and error. Just take it seriously and put your mix head on.
Does listening to different styles of mix help as well?
Yeah, definitely. Listen to as much music as you can. I assume you are, because you make music. When it comes to finishing them off or getting them to a point where you want them to sound good, just take that as serious as writing it or getting the right beats or the right snare. And this is something that I do. Who can see that? That's my master fader. On it, I've got a glue compressor and an EQ.
Okay.
And I put that on right at the start.
Okay. And what is the glue compressor?
So the glue compressor is something that essentially, for those of you that aren't technical, squashes the sound. So all the stuff that's quiet you'll feel like it's louder, and all the loud things, they'll feel like they're quieter. It feels like it squashes something. And a lot of people will use a compressor on the master fader at the end, and then their mix goes out the window. It's like, what happened? It was really good till I did that. And that's what you're meant to do. Well, put it on at the beginning, and your mixes will sound a lot better. Glue compressor on the master fader.
Nice tip. One question here.
Yeah, just a general question really about your use of that software. Why, for you, is it the best? I mean, is there a particular aspect of it that you really...
It's a good question.
Yeah.
And I can answer it really clearly. So I've used all different types of software for 20 years. And as things develop, you move between one thing and another. And people that I work with, they use this software for that bit, Ableton for this bit, something else for the mixing, because they feel like though that combo works for them. And I understood why they did that a few years ago. But then this version of Live 9 blew me away. I was like, oh wow.
What is it about 9 that...
The sound of it. You know, the earlier versions, I was like, yeah, this is super cool. But the sound's like, okay, I can get a sound better somewhere else. And then when this came, it was like, they've really done some good work on that. And the sound for me was right there with a 12 grand hard, you know, Pro Tools rig. So I put down all those old rigs and I work in this from the very beginning to the very end. And my records are sounding the best they've ever sounded. Ever. I'm not just saying it. I'm very excited about it. Ask my kids. I never shut up about it.
Cool, one question over here.
While we're talking about finishing things, you've obviously made a lot of records over a not a massive period of time, but is there anything that you listen back to now and really dislike or really are really proud of?
I'm really proud of other people's records. Yeah, lots of them. And really don't like some of my own. Most of them. But people keep going, you should put it out again. It sounds so relevant now.
Well,
I'm like, yeah, well, it sounds like I didn't even finish it.
But then that's wonderfully why, you know, making records and having this kind of growth and development is part of it, you know, because, you know, as we all know, at the time when you finish a record, it's the best thing ever, right? You know,
yeah.
So we can look back and reflect on a certain compressor or a certain EQ setting that we had. So,
Yeah.
Cringe a little, but then be proud.
Sure. Thanks for that.
It's all right.
You're right. Finishing an album does feel really good. I remember when I pressed, you know, stop on the very last mix of my first album. I did walk home that night feeling really pleased with myself.
Deadlines.
Deadlines, for sure. Yeah.
Cool. Any more questions? Yeah.
Hello. I was sitting a bit further away before, so I couldn't really see as well, but I can only see stock Ableton plugins in there. Do you just use the stock plugins?
Do you know what?
Releases?
Yeah. I haven't said that because I didn't want to look like I work for Ableton, because I don't. But I use all of the internal plugins because they're really good. You know, I've had access to every single thing I've ever wanted, and still do to an extent. And when I got this computer and I installed everything, the first thing I did was start Charlie B's album. And I said, let me see how far I get only using the Ableton plugins. And I know what I need to do to get a certain sound. So I use a certain array of... My arsenal of effects and plugins is pretty small compared to some people. So I'm using just those, and I've never had to switch it up yet. And, you know, all the Max for Live plugins that are coming out all the time, they're blowing my mind. That new delay, have you got that?
Oh, the dub machine?
Yes.
I know.
My God.
Let's not go there, because that's another 3 hours just breaking it down.
Seriously good.
But yeah, dub machine delay, go to Able's website, it's amazing.
Get it.
That kind of adds what I was just going to say. I'm doing a music project where I'm kind of mixing the genres from dub to hip hop to really heavy rock. Used to be in a live band, was trying to record it Beastie Boys style, kind of like mixing it, recording it, sampling it, but need a new tool because I'm getting back into it to kind of be able to mix it up and record everything in there and come up with samples. And would you say that was the best thing for it, to have everything in one box without buying loads of gear?
There you go. It's right here.
Okay.
The time has arrived for you to buy that tool.
Okay, cool. Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, I mean, I would to add to that the fact that
I still like doing live breaks and kind
Sure.
of, because they got a certain feel, unless I get a kind of more sample feel from that or a digital feel and add distortion to it to get that more live feel.
Well, the good thing about Ableton is the fact that you can. It's probably one of the only tools you can have this really good balance between the music creation process and the music performance process.
Yeah.
Because without getting into it, that's another 2 hours.
Yeah.
But the fact that you can work in clip view for writing, and then you can use the same or arrange view.
Yeah.
But then clip view is really vital for a performance.
Yeah.
But what I would do is, if I were you, is that there's Adam over there, and John from Heritage. You should, utilise.
Will do.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Utilise.
Cheers.
Cool. Next question.
Any more?
Okay. All right. So what's actually brilliant about where we are right now, Jesse has got a good place to start, don't you think, Dave? Yeah, he's got a
Cool.
really good place to start.
Excellent.
Yeah. So Jesse Abiyomi is up next. He's an Ableton certified trainer. And what you should do is just tell him, hey, Jesse, let's focus on the live looking to things, as in performance. Okay? But for now, Sie Medway-Smith, thank you
Thanks,
very much.
guys.